Hi everyone, Gigabeef here, and welcome back to my Tarkov beginner series. Last time we looked at spawn point navigation on the map Customs, with points of interest and most importantly where other players are likely to be to avoid getting killed right at the start of the raid. If you didn't see that one yet, check it out in the link at the top right or in the description below. Today we're going to be looking at Shoreline. As I said on the last episode, a large advantage that experienced players have over newcomers at the start of raids is understanding the fixed spawn system, meaning that as soon as you appear in the raid, you're at risk of being rushed down or caught as you reposition out of the spawn. This is because there are only so many set spawns scattered across the map, which makes it easy to check out the nearby ones at the beginning. If you're new and still trying to get your bearings, you risk getting killed in 30 seconds before you can even work out where you are. This knowledge gets fuzzier as the raid progresses, meaning if you can survive the first few minutes, then it's harder for people to predict where you could be. The best piece of advice is to get out of the spawn and move to a slightly different location, and then try to figure out where you are if you're lost. We'll be using another map from the wiki. I really do like these 3D maps as they help me to visualize where real landmarks are and what they look like whilst being able to see all of the relevant information. This map is a bit old, but I primarily use it for the general layout, so it will do for our purposes. Spawns on Shoreline are a lot more scattered than Customs, which typically means that they're a bit safer and less prone to instant death. This makes Shoreline a little easier to learn in some ways, as the general dynamic of the map is a bit more freeform. In contrast to Customs, which has many pinch points and limited maneuverability due to hard blockers in the map design, Shoreline gives players more freedom to go where they want, the map itself being quite large in comparison. The general structure of the map has its main points of interest typically up the centre, with gas station, power station and the resort, which follow its main blocking feature of the water outlet south of the resort itself. This splits the map firmly into east and west sections, with pinch points up the centre corresponding to our hot zones. The structure makes pathways to points of interest even more important, which is the question of who can be where at what time, and how does that intersect with my own position. First and foremost, you'll want to consider how do you prefer approaching the crossing before you jump in, or at least give it some thought depending on whether you arrive in the north or south. Just before we go to the first spawn, my favourite crossing point is the little platform just underneath Resort itself. My theory is that other players don't really like going here because it's so close to the danger zone that is Resort, but because of how it's laid out, you can't really be seen from here, and I've had less than a 5% chance of meeting others in this area. It's difficult to get seen, and you get a great high ground view all the way down to the next section that you need to traverse. So, moving on to the first spawn point. Shoreline works in the same way as Customs. East spawn equals west exfil. West spawn equals east exfil. Use this to get a general sense of where you are. We have the road to Customs, the east exfil, so we're definitely somewhere in the west. Conversely, if we'd had tunnel, that would mark a west exfil instead. We appear in a small valley with a road. Looking right, we can see a truck at the end with a small wall. This is one of the first areas that new players learn, because this is actually the tunnel exfil itself, from when you're on the other side of the map, so it should be quite recognisable. There's a bit of high ground on the right, which I'll touch on in a second, and the road up to the village is on the left. If you pop up onto the hill in front, you can see the high ground easily looking back, and also the start of the ruined ship/scav island in the distance. This one is a relatively safe spawn as long as you get moving. The northern side towards village is the most dangerous direction, as other PMCs can push around and catch up if you're moving to gas station at a leisurely pace, or you could bump into each other on the way to resort side on. There are no spawns between yourself and gas station though, so you're free to run towards the middle of the map, and the hill between tunnel and village makes this more secure if you decide to do so, as you can't be seen from the north. I just want to take a quick pause here. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, please consider dropping a sub with the button on the bottom right, hitting the like button, or letting me know in the comments what you like or what you'd like to see in future. I'm super grateful to all of you who've enjoyed the content and subbed so far, and I really hope to keep making videos like this in the future for you. Thanks very much, and let's move on with the video. The next spawn is very close to the first. The fencing on the left and the incline on the right, along with the road to Customs exfil, tells us that we have a west spawn, and points us along the south edge of the village. We start at the base of the high ground section, which is not very useful at this point of the game, given that there's no spawns ahead of us down the road as mentioned. However, it's important to take note for using this exit when you're on the other side of the map. People don't camp this exit very often, but when they do, they are typically up here. It's worth noting that you cannot get on top of the actual tunnel. This advantageous position is slightly to the right. People love to sit in this bush in particular. If you're heading to the tunnel exit from the east side of the map, be careful to check out this position on your way. There is nothing more likely to make you throw your monitor out of the window in Tarkov than being exit camped, so you should take every precaution against it. For the final spawn in this area, it's very distinctive due to the beach and wall on the left, with Scav Island obvious on the horizon. The opening on the left lets us up onto the main road, with a small bunker with a weapons crate ahead. This next point is a little tricky to narrow down. We're by a non-ruined house with the wall visible behind us. Note that the wall is typically lower on this side of the map than on the other side. Given this, it's likely that we're at village, and on the north side, given the empty space after the buildings with the wall on our left. If we continue to move around, there is a small piece of swamp, and to the right we have a landmark set of trees. These are very important. I use this particular stand of trees to orient myself on the northwest side of the map, as they really stand out, as you'll see from a few other points. The westmost village spawns are quite far from everything, and your best bet is to trail around to try and catch someone either at the north or south spawns, depending on what your ultimate goal is. Resort or gas station, for example. I would avoid moving in the northern area for too long in the early game though, as it's very, very open. That little piece on the right isn't called suicide fields for nothing. Running through a couple of the alternate spawns, this one is a little bit more obvious. We could already see my favourite set of trees, so that helps greatly, and the little fence basically means we're at the northeast edge of village. Moving forwards, we can see south down the road that runs through the village from top to bottom. This one is marginally closer to resort if you wanted to make a dash for it, but otherwise it is much the same as the previous one. Moving on, we spawn here in a much more open area with a road to Customs exfil. Small single house on the right, and yep, you guessed it, the favourite trees in the distance. This is the open area I was referring to previously. If we move back up the hill a little, we can see the low wall of the west side of the map. I hate this spawn. It's not near anything, it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's super open. I'll leave my wonderful clip of getting shot 1 minute into a raid at the end for you to check out. Even the thermal can't save me from the horrible swamp spawn. Next we have a boring spawn. Its primary features is not really having any features at all. We have the low wall with a road to Customs exit, which means that we're on the west side, and no village or tunnel in sight. As we come forward, the ruined buildings at the swamp come into view, and finally we can see our set of tall trees in the distance. Because this one is right in the most uninteresting corner of the map, your path just doesn't intersect with anyone else and their routes to the various areas, which is why nothing happens over here. This next spawn is also very similar. Same wall, same swamp. We can see the church from here, which is on the east side of the ruined village. The one discernible feature of this spawn is it's the closest to the double loot containers to the east, which is probably where you want to go from here anyway. If you sprint to the resort from here, be mindful that village spawners will also get there at the same time as you from the south. One extra clip that I wanted to just pop in here is one of my favourite pieces of world building in this game. I love seeing how different features of other maps fit together to get a sense of how the overall Tarkov world map connects, and Shoreline is no different, with the reserve dome visible along the north edge. Maybe this is a useful landmark on the north side of the map, but I just think it's super cool and worth mentioning. Now we're getting back to the interesting spawns. Here we show up next to a big rock and a set of power cables and pylons. There is no wall here, but instead an impassable rock outcrop. This marks the north edge of the map. This spawn is north of resort and is one of the best for getting in there to do whatever you need to do, quests or setting up a tactical position for PvP. As we move up the hill you can see one of the sniper scav rocks and also the rock passage exit to the east, which you can tell is open due to the green smoke. If you continue to move east rather than going to resort, it is quite likely that you'll bump into at least one other east side spawn PMC at some point, as although it's a very long way around, the northern crossing is one of the safer routes. I don't like it that much personally though, because of how long it takes to get here if you're anywhere else on the map. This next one again has no wall, and the rock outcrop ahead tells us it's north of resort, with this spawn being another close one. The rock outcrop valley here is the northeastmost point of the resort hill, with Fountain just around the corner. Another giveaway is the row of electricity cables overhead that run parallel to the back of the map. This is another great spawn for resort, so you can get there before anyone else's path is likely to intersect with your own. Okay, so here we spawn in a corner with more pylons. The wall is back, and because of the direction, we must be in the northeast. We have a tunnel exfil which makes this even more clear. This spawn is kind of a funny one. It's close to resort, but in the second tier as someone else from the northern spawns might get there first, and it is likely that PMCs do spawn over there, as this one is a little bit further away, so they're not right next to you. Be careful from the south, as players will make a beeline for the resort, and if you don't take care you can run into people in this area, which is fairly open despite the scattered tree cover, as you can see people from a surprising distance away. As we move away from the spawn, we can already get a glimpse of resort in the distance. Here we show up in a forest with the wall to our left and a tunnel exfil, so on the east side. Turning around we can see resort already on the hill, and the weapons house or house on the hill, depending on your map or callouts, on our right. This is the one with the double weapons boxes. If we look through the trees, we can just about see the top of the radio tower in the distance. Whenever I start here I feel like I have many options. The front of resort is accessible. We start up on a small high ground over the southern area of the map, and this is a great place to overlook the path to resort if you're looking to catch people on their way in, as you get to position in advance. The last set of spawns in the southeast of Shoreline I would argue are the most complex out of all of the spawns in terms of potential player interaction. There are many paths that people might take, and a high density of spawns around the bottom corner, so the tendency to bump into other PMCs is actually quite high. Here we spawn with the road to customs exfil on our right, which much like tunnels should become recognisable fairly quickly due to its use as the main east exit from Shoreline that is always open. Care needs to be taken here both north and south, but the southerly spawns are more likely to be coming in your direction just due to the flow of the map. Grabbing a high ground position on the radio tower isn't a terrible idea, but just try not to make yourself too obvious a target, as you can be seen by half of this side of the map, and standing on an obvious landmark might not be the best idea. Next one. We can see CCP Temp on the horizon to help us orient. This hilly but open section is typical of the south edge corner. I have to say, I find this spawn to be the most scary of the southeast spawns. We're really hemmed in here, and PMCs can spawn on both the left and the right, so if you do manage to catch someone unawares, just bear in mind there's probably another PMC nearby who will hear you ring the dinner bell and come searching after you, losing the surprise advantage on your end. More typically, I really try to chill and take it easy if I spawn here, and try moving either directly north or directly west to avoid getting caught between two people at the same time, which might happen if you move straight up between the middle. This one is a fun spawn. We open right next to one of the most unique natural features on the map, which is the rock arch. I really enjoy this spawn point because it's right next to radar tower or weather station, whichever you prefer to call it, which gives you massive flexibility to move to gas station, to power station, or even just take the high ground and try and pick off some poor souls who started in the corner spawns. As you might imagine, snipers usually flock to this hill, given how much visibility you get from the various sides. Alright everyone, that's about it for today. There are a couple of other spawn points on this map, but I figured it was probably overkill to go through literally every single one. But there should definitely be enough in here to get you started and oriented on the map in general. As mentioned, next time we'll be taking a look at some more of the first minutes in the next episodes for different maps, so be sure to check back in for the latest installment. I've got one final clip to show you of what happens when you get caught out of position at a tricky spawn. So while you enjoy that, until next time, ta-ta for now, and have fun in your raids. Right, oh my god, the swamp again! Seriously? Yeah, I know. God, I hate the swamp spawn, seriously, it sucks. I get it all the time, it's awful. Wow, you're crazy. Ooh, shit! Ah, no! What the hell? I do not know where that's from. Ow! Where the f*** is that from? Cock. This is not good.